In addition to viewers on the NBC Sports app, we'd like to welcome those of you watching on regional sports networks, NBC Sports Bay Area, Chicago, Washington, and Northwest. And if you were watching last year at the Kansas Speedway during the race, you know that chaos can be a part of Xfinity Series playoffs. It certainly happened here.
Kansas. What is at stake today for these guys is huge.
And around goes Justin Allgaier. This is Darrell Wallace Jr.
Straight to the garage here, straight to the garage.
And old Jones and Dillon bounced off each other.
And a lot of damage to the left rear.
He's going to have to pit, obviously.
Another chaser comes to grief at Kansas.
Brendan Gaughan sliding through the grass.
This is exactly what the 62 didn't need.
Check this out. He knows every lap counts. He wants to get back out there. The chase drivers have to fight out of the hole that they are now in.
That was last year. This year, the playoff is into the round of 8. And William Byron, Justin Allgaier, and Elliott Sadler lead going in. Dave Burns with you along with Dale Jarrett. Looking at the playoff leaderboard, DJ. It is down to 8.
It is down to 8, Dave. And, you know, as we get into this basically final round before we go to Homestead to determine the champion, there's only 2 words or 2 phrases that come to mind. Winning and stage points. And that's going to be, could be the key to getting to Miami, because the most we can have is 3 winners, so somebody's going to get their own points.
We have seen how important the stage points are, how they can kickstart a relatively mediocre day into perhaps a round-breaking performance. And that certainly is going to be the case, as DJ said. So, gorgeous afternoon here at Kansas Speedway. A little bit windy, and to check on weather conditions and everything else pit side, we go to Parker Kligerman.
Good afternoon, David. I'd actually term it blustery down here.
It looks blustery
right now. It is.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you can see behind me the flags. The wind up here is incredibly strong right now, and it's ebbing and flowing in strength. But the big thing is it's a tailwind into turn 3. So what that means for the drivers is this racetrack historically is a little bit loose to turn 3, and now you add that tailwind, which makes you go a little bit faster into turn 3, and also just adds a little bit extra push on that rear, which can make you looser. So a lot of these drivers are focusing on what to do into turn 3 and how to make these race cars settle down a little bit so you can get in that corner with as much throttle as possible.
And not only are they heading toward turn 3 with a tailwind, DJ, it's the longest backstretch of any mile and a half that the series goes to.
Yeah, and you really want to utilize that wind to your advantage. But these cars and these drivers have to drive these things so hard around this racetrack because of the less horsepower that they have versus the Cup cars. And so you have to be a little bit careful in getting that, a little bit of extra speed. It doesn't mean that, okay, if I'm going to drive to the same place that I normally would with this tailwind, that my car is going to react the same. And I also like the idea that we mentioned winning, and then we went to Parker. That was a big win last week.
Talladega winner again, Parker Kligerman in the Truck Series. That was good to see. Next thing, we'll have him in the helmet cam. That'd be even better.
Oh, yeah.
Elliott Sadler's carrying it for us this week in the Xfinity Series, and you see him down that long backstretch playing that tailwind. And then right here, DJ, what is the feeling?
Yeah, that you want the car to set down for you so that you can get back to the gas as quickly as possible. That's not what Elliott wanted. There was getting up and coming up on a lap car that quickly as you're out there trying to get some good laps, because obviously with new tires, that's your best time to lay down your fastest lap. But you really want that car to settle where it can get it turned, and as you power up, you want to stay in the throttle all the way off the corner. Had dinner with Elliott Sadler last night, just catching up. We hadn't had a chance to do it, and got to talk about the excitement of being in the championship battle once again. Something, this championship in the Xfinity Series is something that means a lot to him, trying to get that first one. And he's excited about the cars at Junior Motorsports, that all 3 of the drivers there that are still involved in the playoffs that they brought here, and they really feel like that they can get themselves situated in a good position, hopefully with one of them leaving here with a victory.
If you've never had the privilege of having a ride along in an Xfinity car, a 2-seater, that's about as close as you're going to get. A great angle from the driver's helmet of Elliott Sadler.
And that's why Elliott was telling you that he really enjoys doing this. He said after he saw it, he realized how cool a shot that was for the fans, that probably the closest thing that you get, as you just said, as to riding along and really getting the view that the driver has here. Elliott finished second here last year, this race, so he would like to up that by 1, but you can see here, this track is, even though it's aged out a little bit since the repave, it's still not what we would call one of the rough racetracks that you have. There are a couple of spots you can see, but the wind will buffet the cars around here more this afternoon than what the drivers are accustomed to. But I think they're going to face these type situations tomorrow, at least at the beginning of their race.
Another onboard camera we have for you this weekend, looking over at Cole Custer. This is if you were in the ride-along and you were brave enough to glance to your left and see what Cole was doing.
Well, I'm glad we have this because I'm not getting and riding with anybody personally. But, of course, he's going to come in now. But a young man that's really, in his rookie year, has done an outstanding job, has situated himself in position as one of the favorites to make it to Miami because he has done the best on the mile and a half of anyone this year.
And he's the youngest driver in the playoffs. So Cole has shut it completely off and will coast around back into the garage area. Different look for the 9 car this weekend. This is William Byron, and he is on top of the playoff leaderboard.
Yeah, speaking of outstanding rookies, my gosh, what a tremendous job he's done and getting himself playoff ready and sitting atop the standings right now, and very capable, as he's shown, winning against any and all competition.
Let's head back down to the blustery garage area, Parker.
Well, guys, a quick update on William Byron. He just came across radio saying he's too loose right now, especially trying to get down the line in 3, kind of like what we talked about at the top of the show. But another thing to keep note of is if we go on board with some of these drivers and we get to see that telemetry is watch that throttle trace. Because for the first time around here with this low downforce package this year, these drivers are driving this track in Xfinity cars different than they ever have. If you think back to the last couple years and the downforce package we had, you could go around this place flat out in qualifying trim. But that is not the case this year. These drivers have to lift and even brake a little bit in race trim and are definitely going to have to lift in qualifying trim. So it's really changed how they go around here in these Xfinity cars.
Yeah, that's a good point, Parker, that how much different these things are driving, and talking to drivers throughout the entire year about how much it's changed the way that they have to approach these races. And, they know that it's going to be quite a bit different whenever they get in packs and racing around other cars. But those qualifying laps have become a lot more exciting for them than what they were accustomed to in years past, where, as Parker was pointing out, they could pretty much flat-footed around here if your car was pretty decent. That's getting really loose down into 3 right there.
I say you caught that little wiggle by Allgaier, corrected that, kept the 7 car in good shape. Better shape than he was last race at Charlotte. Disappointment for him at the end of that evening. After he got into some debris. Here's that move again down into 3, DJ.
You'll see, this could just be simply trying to get a little bit more with that tailwind down in there. And all you have to do is drive it 10, 20 feet further down in there, and you're carrying more speed than what the car has grip at that point in time, the tires have at that point in time. But he did a nice job of catching it, and obviously coming off a disappointing race at Charlotte. They've been selling along in a really good fashion and looked like they were kind of setting themselves up. We talk about different people being the favorite going in, but I think all 3 of the junior motorsports drivers have to be considered favorites trying to get to Homestead.
That junior motorsports driver currently 2nd quickest in practice. Welcome back to Kansas Speedway. Practice underway, the first of 2 sessions this afternoon, 55 minutes apiece, to get their cars situated for tomorrow's qualifying and 300-mile event. Ryan Blaney on track for Team Penske and currently quickest.
Yeah, not only quickest, but you could look at this and think that this is kind of a Kyle Busch type season in this Xfinity series with what he's been able to do in just 10 starts, 2 wins, 5 second place finishes, 9 top 10s. I'd call that a pretty good season.
And speaking of starts, a tradition may have been born by Ryan Blaney at Dover. Here he's going to victory lane in the green 22 and then handing off the flag. Kind of a nice gesture and appreciated by that young man. Gesture well enough recognized by Alex Bowman so that when he went to victory lane at Charlotte, he signed the flag and handed it off to a young person as well.
Yeah, always nice to start something that others realize how the importance of it, and it carries on from that point. And so young fans are going to be gathering around in these Xfinity races, getting near the start-finish line.
I know from taking my daughter to the track on a truck race weekend or an Xfinity race, they like anything that is given to them that has to do with the race or the racing or the drivers, but to get the checkered flag from the winner, I mean, holy cow.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And kudos to Mr. Blaney for coming up with that idea up in Dover.
Yep.
Even gave it to a young man that had on a Target hat. I believe he was a fan of one of the other drivers, but ended up in victory lane with a hat of the man that gave him that, Mr. Blaney's.
Matt Tift on track now in the 19. Interim crew chief for him this weekend is Dave Rogers from Joe Gibbs Racing. Matt Beckman benched for a week after the car was found too low in post-race inspection at Charlotte. Talked to Dave earlier. He said he's glad to be back on the box and expects to do a fine job. One difference is he says Beckman wears about 4 radios going up and down that ladder. He said, I'm good for about 2. A little out of practice with that.
That's a pretty good bench that Joe Gibbs Racing has there that they can bring in Dave Rogers to be the crew chief on this. You know, that's just so much experience there, and I know that Dave is glad to be back and should make a good pairing for them this weekend.
Indeed, and that penalty didn't hurt Tift as far as moving on to the round of 8, as that was done before the reset. So here he is going for his championship for Joe Gibbs, as is this driver, the 16, Ryan Reed, behind the wheel for Roush Fenway.
Was able to get in by the slimmest of margins.
Now, that was a battle, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, there was so much going on those last 10 laps of that Charlotte race. Brendan Gaughan and what Ryan was trying to do there and making important passes at the end, just amazing what they did. But here he is with another chance. 3 races to get it done to battle for a championship.
Ryan at work there, was down in the garage with his crew earlier today, and I kind of referred to that. Hey, if he can drive like that for the next 4 races, you've got a chance. And they're big smiles. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they saw something out of their driver. They knew it was there, but maybe he didn't have to apply before that moment.
Yeah. And I think that said a lot about him, that, you know, we always wondered, we've seen him in tight situations before and try to get a little bit too much. But what he did was take that car that night. It wasn't the best handling car, but he found a way to make it happen and not give it away. And you know, that would be easy to do in those situations, trying to get too much at the wrong time. But outstanding job, and probably found out things about himself that he can carry forward that'll be very beneficial to him, you know, whether it's in these next 3 races getting to the next round or throughout his career.
Let's hear more from Ryan on Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Reed, driver of the number 16 Lilly Diabetes Ford Mustang, and here are 3 things that you do not know about me. 1, I love death metal music, so I like that screaming, really loud, my parents hate it type music. 2, I love superhero movies, so like Avengers, Batman, Superman, all of them. And then probably my biggest hobby right now is golf. I love to golf. I'm so terrible at it, but trying to get better and have a lot of fun with it.
DJ now queuing up his best death metal music.
No, he lost me on those first 2 there. And I can identify with the frustration of golf, as Rick Allen and Steve Letarte will attest to yesterday as we played golf back in North Carolina before we came out here. But, yes, tough game. Kind of like racing. Can be as much fun or the most frustrating thing you ever do.
Parker, you want to weigh in on death metal or superheroes or golf?
You know, I'm not too much into death metal, and my golf game could be related to death metal in its ability, so it's just not that good. But, hey, guys, he just came across radio as he finishes that run and said that 16 car was bottoming out actually into turn 1, which is the first time I've heard that, and actually suffering from being too tight in that 16 car. But also, you guys referenced what he did at Charlotte and that drive he put in to beat Brendan Gaughan and go on to this next round of the playoffs. The one thing that team told me, though, and in talking to them and listening to their radio throughout that race, they are frustrated. They have not been able to find the real speed that they want in that 16 car to go and contend for this championship. So I think we saw a driver who put in a great drive, but a team in that race that felt frustrated because they didn't feel like they are bringing the cars or finding that speed that they've been trying to find all year if they're really going to contend for this championship, which is just, as you know, a frustrating place to be.
Absolutely, Parker. You got to have the whole package, right, DJ?
Yeah, it takes everything, and we're going to go back to Charlotte here and look at a little bit of that, what they were able to do. You know, this looked like a bad situation for him as Brendan Gaughan got his car running a little bit better, but look how aggressive he was with this car. And we've seen him be too aggressive at times, but this was a time whenever he knew what he needed to do. He had to try to make Brandon Jones pass him on the inside. He was able to carry that onto the high side and keep that slimmest of margins to where he can move on to the next round. But I think this is a situation, too. The driver has become better, and they've got to get the cars up to his standards now, and then they'll have something to work with.
They're working on it now in the garage area at the Kansas Speedway. We'll be back with more. This weekend, it's a NASCAR playoff doubleheader from Kansas. Xfinity Series tomorrow on NBC, the first race in the round of 8, coverage beginning at 3, and then 3 on Sunday as well, but switch over to NBCSN for the Monster Energy Cup Series playoffs, continuing with an elimination race. That's right, Talladega was only the cream in the middle of the Oreo there. They've got the other side to deal with now, and who will go home or continue on, but not in the playoff picture.
Yeah, it was elimination of sorts, for sure. Eliminated a lot of cars on that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Except Junior made it through and almost had it at the end.
Yeah.
Car was a little too damaged to do anything with. That was fun to see. This car is fast, always. We know it. Eric Phillips, the crew chief, he gets a rotation of drivers, and this week it is Norman, Oklahoma's Christopher Bell. Of course, Christopher's going to run the entire Xfinity Series next year for Joe Gibbs Racing. Really has had a good progression up through the NASCAR ranks after starting in the open wheel.
Yeah, very talented, and Joe Gibbs Racing understands that and seen that. Toyota really, really good with their development of young drivers coming along, giving them opportunities from the truck series, even all the way down, even before that, and getting drivers like Harrison Burton and Todd Gilliland, and getting these drivers in their programs at a young age to help them move forward. And this Christopher Bell's just one of those drivers that has been fortunate to get himself situated in that Toyota camp, and will get to be in this series full-time next year at Joe Gibbs Racing. So on a quick path. We see that a lot. These drivers, they get into the Cup Series at a younger and younger age, and make them for a lot of fun to keep up with their progress as they move forward.
Looking at 2018, we talked about Bell, there are Reddick, Tiff, and Brennan Poole. No word yet from the driver of this 48 car. He's taken a little bit different path than what you just described, DJ, but nonetheless put in his time in the ARCA Racing Series, and then half season to start with Chip Ganassi. Now is competing for the championship again this year.
And has earned a right to be in a good race car battling, because he's really improved. You've seen that improvement, and other than his teammate being outstanding at Kentucky, he just whipped the rest of the field, but his teammate was a little better than even he was. So, hopefully can get things worked out, because a really, really good race driver.
And DJ, he's been in the rumor mill as of late, right? There's his name coming into the fray for maybe a Cup ride. But I actually got to speak to Brennan a little bit today, and he told me, look, I'm focused on this championship. We want to win this championship. I have a shot to win a NASCAR Xfinity Series championship. And he just kept saying championship because he felt like, he said, if I focus on that and I'm able to win this championship, then all that other stuff will figure itself out. So I know you had it on the graphic there. Where will Brennan Poole go next year? I think right now all he cares about is these next couple races and trying to win this championship.
See him making a hot pit road entrance there, downshifting, hits it just right. And it's hard, isn't it, Dale? Because you start getting distractions this time of year when you're trying so hard to focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, and you have to convince yourself that you can't look into the future, that you only have to think about what's happening right now. And you can see what's been happening has been really, really good. And I think these Ganassi cars came to the playoffs with something a little bit more and better than what they had even had in the regular season. But you can't help but be thinking about what you're going to do next year. Yes, easy to say, I'm just focused on this championship, but if you wait all the way to the middle towards the end of November to be looking at what next year's going to bring you, then you might find yourself on the outside looking in. That's a great something to have on your resume, an Xfinity championship, but he has to be thinking about that somewhat. So there's room in your mind as a driver to be able to separate that. All of that takes place during the week and before you get here on Friday, and it's time to climb in the car, then it's time to go to work.
Brennan's example of points in NASCAR is one of the contrasting ones where he's been so hot lately because he didn't have a lot of those playoff points coming in compared to the others. Look where he sits.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of an uphill battle, but I think the way that they have been running is going to help them tremendously. So that's kind of one of those situations that, we don't have anything to fall back on, but because we're getting hot at the right time, that could benefit us as much.
He has been fast everywhere, including pit road. More speeding penalties for Brennan than anyone else in the series in the playoffs.
Everybody that you look at, you say, man, they're all dangerous.
One mistake, one bad pit stop, get into the fence one time, and you're gone.
When the pressure's on, it just matters who rises up and takes care of the moment they're put in.
One race, one event can determine the rest of your year.
The drama and the danger of the Xfinity Series playoffs, man, it seems to join them at every turn. And here at the Kansas Speedway, certainly could happen again as they begin the round of 8. 8 survived the cutoff race at Charlotte, including this gentleman here, the 7 of Justin Allgaier, even though he hit a battery, DJ. That doesn't happen every night.
No, sure doesn't. You hope that that's the one time that might happen in your career. But you just never know what's going to be there. It's so difficult.
Angela Rook crashes. Parts from the 78 car are spewed onto the racetrack, and right there, Justin Allgaier's splitter and front end, kapow. And what kind of damage inside there, DJ, then was probably done?
Yeah, I think that it got into the radiator, and then they had overheating problems. He was running inside the top 5 there and having a pretty decent evening as it turned into the night race there. So I think that, once they realized, they were on and through, then they're kind of glad they got that out of the way. But they've been really, really, over the last couple of months, fast. And even when they didn't have the fastest car, that they made into good finishes and even a win. So that's when you look and say, okay, that's a really good championship caliber team and driver that can take days when you don't have the best car and make something really good happen.
Parker?
Hey, and DJ, you brought up what maybe happened there with that battery going into the front end of that 7 car. Well, I got to speak to Justin about that and his crew chief, Jason Burdett, just this morning. And I said, what happened there? And he said, well, here's what's funny. The battery went through and hit the radiator, but it got lodged between the radiator and the ducting and actually dislodged the ducting in there. So they were getting air to the car, but it wasn't getting to the radiator. So eventually they overheated, and I obviously had to go to the pit road. But that was just one of those weird occurrences that happen sometimes.
Yeah, you have that. Yeah, this is boxed in there to make sure that the air that's coming into the front goes directly through the radiator. And so you would think that it would still get plenty, but this air's a funny thing, and you're not directing it where you need it. That's why they work so hard on the bodies at getting it to the spoiler and to the quarter panels the way that they want it to. Was the same way with the radiator, that if you don't have it, if the air's still just going through there, then it's going right out the bottom where there's not something there to direct that. So just one of those strange situations, and it takes every bit of that air because they put the tape on there as if the air is being directed there, and they didn't realize all of that or couldn't make all of that happen without making extensive changes.
Had my HVAC guy put that aluminum tape all around my return air this week, telling me, Mr. Burns, you're not getting efficient airflow here. So
there you go.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah. Good thing that you got to it before it blew up.
Yeah, it's exactly
or
right.
you blew up.
I didn't want to do that interview afterwards if that had been me. My wife would have been not happy with me. Here's a driver on pace in the 2 car for Richard Childress Racing. Yeah, that's right. We're showing. I was looking left and I was looking right at the same time. As we get into the playoffs here, you have to have had less than 5 years experience in the Cup Series in order to participate in the playoff races. Austin Dillon does in this 2 car, but he cannot race at Homestead.
That's right.
Because it's a full-time Cup guy.
Yep. Be none of those, be strictly Xfinity, or in some cases it's going to be drivers in the Truck Series that are going to be in the Xfinity cars, but none of the Cup guys that have been that are signed up there and have gotten points on a regular basis this year.
You can see up on our ticker there that Austin put down the 3rd quickest lap in the 2 car. Still looking for that first win in 2017. I was looking, DJ, there have been 16 different winners this year. And then I started counting the cars that could still potentially win. I think the record is 18 in the Xfinity Series. I mean, there is at least a half a dozen.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the first two that really jump out and come to mind are Austin Dillon and Elliott Sadler, who haven't won yet at this point in time. And we've always expected RCR to be really good on the mile-and-a-half tracks, and I think that's the one place they've probably struggled more this year. That's what really impresses me with Daniel Hemrick, that he's been able to perform at the level that he has, when I think the company has just been off a little bit. They've been good. The company's good. They've just been in an area that they've been outstanding over the years. It just seems others have picked up and they haven't progressed with them, and so it's made it a little bit more difficult, but Austin's showing some speed here so far.
Hemrick, by the way, another one of those drivers that hasn't won yet in his career and potentially could. Cole Custer in the 00 has not won. Brennan Poole has not won.
Yep.
Another fast race car. So, I mean, the list really is quite stacked, and Saturday afternoon could be pretty exciting here.
Yeah, and you throw in Christopher Bell in that 18 car, which is very capable of winning. So there's all kinds of drivers that we look at that could get us to and maybe surpass that record.
Last 9, as you can see, have all been different drivers, too, so it's been quite a variety. And I think it's one of the reasons why people like watching the Xfinity Series. There is some shakeup. There's a lot of variety in who wins, and maybe some drivers that you don't see on Sunday or not all the time on Saturday. And people like to see that. We look at Brendan Gaughan, 16th quick right now in this practice. Last year for him here was an adventure.
Yeah, he was in the playoffs trying to gather as many points as they possibly could. You can see they're battling hard. This was the hardest thing they did all day, though.
Not part of the race,
no.
But once he realized they could get back in it and maybe gather some valuable points, called back to the race car. And off he went. I think he's hoping for most of that not to happen this year.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, missing out just by a single point and moving into this round. Yeah, and you could say, well, he just needed to pass another car or 2 more cars at Charlotte. Well, there were 2 other races in that round also that you look back, and if you could have just done things a little bit better, it's a combination of them. It's not just that one event that cost him, but he ran hard there. That was an outstanding run that he made at the end. Just couldn't quite get to Elliott Sadler there in those last 5 laps to try to take that spot away so he could move on.
Always entertaining, Brendan Gaughan in the 62 car. Here are the top 10 in practice at Kansas. Iowa Speedway was a fantastic day for a young man named William Byron, who was able to win there for the first time, and then, of course, he won at Daytona and Indianapolis as well for his 3 wins in the Xfinity Series this year. And he's atop the playoff leaderboard. First Xfinity race, though, DJ, for him here, but not his first race.
Nope. Won here in the trucks last year, so knows how to get the job done, and I would expect him to be a factor tomorrow afternoon for sure. It's just, gosh, what a quick rise this young man's made through the NASCAR ranks. I mean, yeah, he didn't get that the Truck Series championship last year, even though he won at Homestead. He wasn't a part of the championship 4 there, but we certainly expect him to be battling for the championship here in just over a month, or right at a month away.
Speaking of time of year, DJ, it's homecoming time of year. This is Liberty University last week. And Liberty's favorite student right now, there he is, William Byron, had a chance to unveil his 2018 paint scheme. And, it's a little bit different, but I think really cool.
Okay, so, you got football players and basketball players and baseball and other athletes walking around as the big man on campus, but none of them showed up with their race car. I'm sorry. He just took over. He became the new man there. For sure, and that's really cool that they have stood behind him, and there he is getting a great education on top of getting the education out here that he's getting on a weekly basis. So I just really think a lot of William for everything that he is doing in his personal life, and then how well he's handled everything here, because as he won that first race then, and even as he came into the Xfinity Series, the expectations were high, and he's lived up to all the hype.
And just to button up all those numbers there, of course, next year going to the Cup Series, he will switch numbers with Chase Elliott and take on the 24. Elliott will get the 9 that his father made so famous in that series. That'll be kind of fun. So William pulls it in. He has had exactly 19 timed laps on the track. We'll get a little pressure check there and temperature check from his team and the Goodyear guys, who all day long, DJ, Goodyear's down there as well, looking at their product, right?
Yeah.
They want to see what's happening with the race cars, and so every time a car pulls in there, it's not just the team that's wondering, it's Goodyear maintaining what's going on.
Yeah, it's information for everybody involved, and so they'll take all of that, those numbers back, and they'll look at them also, make sure that the tire is working exactly the way that they thought that it should. This is the first trip to this Speedway for these Xfinity teams, and so it's the same tire that the Cup guys have, and so they're familiar with it. But is it working and to the expectations that they had whenever they said, okay, these Xfinity cars need the same thing as the Cup guys do this weekend?
Hey, DJ, watch this line out that Sadler takes down into turn 1. Look at that. Right in the middle of the racetrack almost right now. That's something a lot of these drivers have been discussing. We saw it in Cup practice before this practice where I think it was Kyle Larson who went to the middle lane and set a really fast time. And throughout the garage here, a lot of the spotters are describing to the drivers exactly where they're running, because it seems like this groove is moving up a little bit, this Kansas Speedway, as it wears out with this softer tire. And remember, this is a variable banking racetrack, so I expected that groove to move up, but I think we're seeing definite, what they wanted to see out of this tire, which is getting that groove to move around a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the wind probably has a little something to do with it and what you're able to do down there. Actually, when I saw Kyle Larson do it in Cup Series and getting ready for qualifying, I actually thought he had missed the corner a little bit, and then realized it was totally by design, which I should have known. He doesn't miss many corners. But then he put down a lap that was way faster than anybody else, and just shows everybody's paying attention and what you need to do, by staying up there, and especially with these cars that have less horsepower than the Cup cars, you get that nice run off of turn 2 with the RPMs up a little bit, then that's only going to carry more speed down the back straightaway with the wind.
You notice Elliott, as he comes out of the throttle, there are a lot more checks up in the mirror to make sure that he doesn't get run over from behind. He's been in racing for quite a while in NASCAR, but there may be 3 things that you are unaware of.
Hey guys, I'm Elliott Sadler, driver of the 1 Million Financial Chevrolet, and 3 things that you don't know about me. 1, I'm probably the world record holder at the Toy Story ride at Disney World in Orlando. 2, I am the original grill master. I love grilling out. I have actually 5 grills on my back porch, 5 different grills for different kinds of cooking. And 3, when I grow up, I want to be a basketball coach.
Now, is the first one true about Toy Story?
Everything's true, and there's a lot more to him that would be as crazy as those would be too. But here's the problem with his aspirations to be a basketball coach. I'm not sure he's ever going to grow up. That's the thing. It's what I love about him.
A lot of fun to watch. Pulls it into the garage here. We'll be back with more practice in a moment. Just over 12 minutes remaining in first practice for the Xfinity Series from the Kansas Speedway. Dave Burns, Dale Jarrett, Parker Kligerman bringing you the action and getting a good look there at the 07 of Spencer Boyd. Spencer, the 21-year-old from St. Louis, with a big announcement this week that he will take that sponsor and stay with SS Greenlight Racing, that's Bobby Dotter's group, and run the full season next year for the championship, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, nice. Good to have another young driver involved in this.
Venerable series. I'll finish that sentence for you. Or
very good. I couldn't come up with it.
He's going to change the number to the 76, though. There's a veteran who owns that grunt-style apparel, and they're going to change it to 76, so we expect a patriotic theme. That'll be cool. Passing him, the 23 of Spencer Boyd, and as I looked at cars that haven't, Spencer Gallagher, Spencer the Spencer, I looked at a number of cars that haven't won yet. Gallagher's speed this weekend is good, DJ. 12th overall in a single lap time.
Yep, put down a good lap there early on. His 5th lap was his quickest. We've seen improvement out of this team too, and probably the driver at that. Just kind of everybody learning together and doing better things.
So from the 23 to the 21 of Hemrick, Daniel Hemrick that is, and again a couple of weeks ago some changes in the crew there and staying with that throughout the championship run. Parker?
Right, and he's had an interesting week. I can remember, guys, the first time I got to drive a Cup car, right? I was asked, while I was in class in high school, I got a call, and it was Team Penske asked me to come test a car, and I immediately said yes, of course, right?
Of course.
Well, Daniel Hemrick might take the cake on a better story. He was headed on vacation this week down to Mexico with his wife. He lands down there. He gets a call. It's Sammy Johns from RCR saying, can you come test a Cup car for us at the Roval at Charlotte? So what did he say? Yes, of course he can. He came back, he got in that car, and he tested at the Roval. And what's interesting about that is I talked to Daniel last night on NASCAR America, and I asked him, I said, hey, coming into the season, did you think of yourself as much of a road racer? And then to go on and have those great finishes they did at the road course races, and then to test a Cup car for the first time on a road course. What do you think about that? And he said, you know, I never expected it, but I'm glad I figured it out because it's a lot of fun, guys.
Yeah, it's really cool. Of course, the Roval will be part of the playoffs next year for, well, I'm sure for the Xfinity as well as for the Cup Series, but that was the Cup Goodyear test there, and a few people got a good look at that, and Daniel from the driver's seat.
Yep, and once again, very understanding wife in a situation to where, you know, this is your life. This is what you do. So unfortunately, yeah, vacations get interrupted sometimes. But as we look here, you know, continue stepping up. You know, that's what he has to do here this weekend. He has outperformed the equipment and the rest of the teammates, I think, at RCR. He's done an outstanding job throughout the year of being better and realizing the situation, but on the other side of it, not being overwhelmed by certain situations when he finds himself running good and up front, but also not letting days whenever they're not running as good. He's been able to make some good finishes out of that. So to me, he's been the most outstanding driver from the beginning as a rookie to where he's gotten to at this point in time with this race team.
I think it helped Daniel that his wife is a racer herself, getting called off from that vacation. These rookies could all be champions this year. It'll be fun to watch and see what they do for the next 4 races. 5 p.m. weekdays on NBCSN. Coming up this week, a recap of what we see tomorrow and Sunday here at Kansas. Tuesday, one of our favorites, Scannell, and then Wednesday, DJ, I think you know that guy.
Yes, Mr. Joe Gibbs. He's joining us at the Hall of Fame. Be fun to catch up with him for an hour on Wednesday afternoon.
Those afternoons are always a lot of fun, a little more casual, a lot more time to talk.
Yeah.
We've really enjoyed those this year. So practice winding down. Just a little over 5 minutes remaining. And Tyler Reddick is on track in the 42. This week, he has removed his name from the top of the door there on both sides and replaced it with his grandmother's, Carolyn Joyce Brown. Nana to Tyler passed away this week, and they were really close. And one of the things about the Reddicks is they all went to see racing when Tyler was coming up and through the ranks, and Nana was a big part of that. Tyler told me when I was talking to him in the garage earlier today that he's really going to miss her, and that she always used to text him, good or bad, after the races. And he showed me one, and guess what? It was after the win at Kentucky.
Oh, gosh.
She couldn't have been prouder.
Yeah.
Made sure she texted him, and she said, because she knows you ran a perfect race.
How about that?
Of course, he had a perfect race car.
I mean, Grandma, you have texting to start with.
Yeah,
and then
right.
to get that, and that is so cool. And wow, did he run a great race that night? That was just outstanding.
Yeah.
Fast here again this weekend.
He is. That's not the car, by the way. That car, I don't know where that car is going to show up next. I think they said they were saving it for Homestead just in case. But this one, I think, is the one. Tyler thought it was the one that he tested at Darlington. You might have remember that story that we told. He bounced off the wall about 6 times and ran 400 laps in a test.
Yeah.
And got used to Darlington, so it's got a good nature in it. Top of the board, Matt Tifft. And that's a good omen for a playoff contender. He will shut it down and bring it in. Parker?
And Dave, as you'd expect, you see Matt Tifft go to the top board. That was a Q run, so some of these teams switching over to do some Q runs here as we get down to the end of this first practice, and that's why you saw some of that speed out of that 19 car.
All right, DJ, explain. What are they bolting on? What are they taking off for a Q run?
Yeah, putting on some fresh tires there will be the first thing that they're going to do, and they'll throw a little bit more tape at it and probably do a little adjustment as far as tightening the car up in other areas with the track bar, maybe a little bit of wedge, and just, it gives the driver an idea, as to what to expect. They're here with a lower downforce package than what they had last year if the drivers were here during that. So just to give their driver, and just so he has somewhat of an idea. This is in the middle of that kind of closer to when they'll be qualifying tomorrow.
Yep.
So just to give the driver that idea of what they're looking at doing. Do they need to make a bigger adjustment than what they made here?
That's right on board with Ryan Reed. He will come to pit road as well. Making that hard left turn. As they rank, Dale, in terms of getting to pit road, where does Kansas Speedway fit?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really difficult. Parker talked about the progressive banking on this. You go right around the bottom, but you have to drive a long way around, and then all of a sudden it's there. So matching up your speed and getting slowed down. You don't want to give up time because, giving up time coming on pit road, especially under green flag conditions, you give up a second just to make sure that you're slowed down, then that's a second that you're going to be behind someone else that hit it just right. So it's a very difficult spot. You also have to make sure, not quite as bad as Talladega, where we saw some accidents and incidents last week during the Cup race, but it's still a very difficult pit road to get onto because you want to carry that speed as far around the corner as you can, yet not get calls for speeding.
I think pitting in NASCAR anywhere is a challenge. Busy, downshifting, braking, turning, and trying to make sure you're inside that red square down there, so you're not in violation of missing the pit road entrance. Quick look at Ty Dillon in the 3 this weekend, brother Austin in the 2. Pretty typical scene, except for the fact that we haven't seen either one of them in victory lane this year. Ty right now clocking 11th quick for his fastest single lap.
I really like the idea that Richard Childress understands is still important for Ty and even for Austin. Even with Austin's success, making the playoffs and things like that, getting more time in the race car at these racetracks is going to just be beneficial to them. So it's nice that he still has the benefit of giving them that chance to drive more races in this, because you're always learning as a driver, and I think that both benefit greatly from that opportunity.
And he will shut it down and bring it in. Time winding down, you see on the upper left there. 15 seconds remaining to get a couple laps in here. Later this afternoon, final practice for these Xfinity cars, and tomorrow qualifying and the race. Fans will have a double ticket again this weekend with August Triple to include ARCA, and then 2 NASCAR events, NASCAR Xfinity Series, and of course the Hollywood Casino 400 on Sunday. Red and black displayed, that means practice is over. And the playoff drivers, there are 8 of them now, starting this round. Here's how they fared over on the right.
See all of them there in the top 15.
Which is where you want to be.
Yep, that's what we expect from them. They got to step their game up right now.
And as Parker talked about, Matt Tiff with the qualifying run there in the 19, quickest overall. Appreciate you joining us here. NASCAR coverage will continue later today on NBCSN with the Xfinity Series final practice. That'll be 5 Eastern. And then at 6, Monster Energy Cup Series qualifying. So thanks to the NBC Sports Regional Networks for joining us today. Regularly scheduled programming will be coming up next. So long from Kansas.